And so before we get into spoiler talk, I'll ask you one more non-spoiler related question. That is, what is it really like working with Jamie Stegmaier?
Jamie Stonemeyer.
That's my daughter's fault. Let me tell you.
So,
oh my gosh, yeah. They have every name except for Jamie Stegmaier.
Jamie's great. I really liked working with him. I thought he was a really nice guy. He was pretty much the same guy in work emails with me as he is online. And he was really open. He was really part of that might have been he was still finishing up Charterstone, which is this enormous endeavor. But basically, I had like 6 or 7 months of just like run, play, do whatever you want, make stuff. Yeah. And then I'll say yes, no, or whatever to it. And then he came in and did his, Michael Jordan thing at the end and cleaned it all up and made it way better.
It sounds like that's kind of the way he's going with the viticulture expansions too, where he's got a couple of teams all working together, and he's like, all right, you guys just go out and do your thing, and then bring it back to me in a month or two.
Yeah, and it worked out really well. And then he did it. I don't want to make it sound like he didn't do design work. He did a bunch of design work on it. But he gave me about a 5 or 6 or 7 month period where he was basically consulting for me, and then just letting me explore things. And then once playtesting started, he really dove in, and a little before the playtesting, we were doing. But the first round of playtesting, it was still pretty rough. That first round of playtesting, and we had a lot of design work to do from the first round to the last round, for example. And then he just brought like tons of things that I can't talk about right now.
Right. All right. Well, actually, now let's go ahead and get into spoilers. Rise of Fenris. All right. I'm excited. Which Star Tracker do you prefer, War Piece or Standard?
Can I cop out and say that I like the modular? I like the modular. Yeah. Actually, the thing that I don't hear anyone saying, and I just kept thinking, why don't people do this? I feel like people use all one Star Tracker, and I don't know why they do that. What I would love to see is play the piece tracker, but then don't randomly choose like 2 specific modular tracker tiles to cover, let's have 3 objectives in a piece game, and let's throw a combat in there too. Why not?
Right.
Like, you don't have to use 10 modular tiles. You can just use one of the existing Star Trackers, Triumph tracks, and then just add a few modular tiles in to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah. No, I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say that Steven St. John actually made a expansion. One of his fan expansions utilizes it that way, which I think is a good way to go about it. I mean, that's the whole idea behind the modular Triumph track is switch things.
Now that you mentioned that, I do remember, I think he did do something with that, but I expected more people to just be like, like people will do that with the airship abilities. They'll be like, I'm not going to randomly choose them. I like these 3 airship abilities. I'm just going to choose from those every time. And I thought that people would do more of the, I just want to take the war track and tweak it slightly, or take the base track and tweak it slightly. And I thought more of that might happen. But so I would go modular or some modified version. But honestly, I usually just play the standard track. Well, I play full modular, I guess, too.
Well, most of my play lately has been Scythe Digital Edition, which is, we were talking about one of the funny questions that came up is, why haven't you added the module Star Tracker, the Triumph track, to the digital game yet?
Or something about like people can do like house rules. House rules. I'm like, I'm not a part of that.
Right.
Also, I think that would be an insane technical challenge. For rules enforcement of house rules. How do you even do that? I don't know. Yes. But I'm not involved inside digital.
What surprising thing did you learn from playtesting?
Surprising thing did we learn? Our playtesters were really cautious about a lot of things, I felt like. I can't remember all the details now, but I remember there was one wave of the playtesting where episode 5, which is kind of a problem. That's the one with the box on the board and the Annihilator in the box. A lot of the playtesters were, it's almost about what we didn't learn, I guess. A lot of playtesters were very cautious about that episode. And I think that we didn't expect that, maybe. We didn't expect the caution around that episode, and around approaching the Annihilator. And this is based on my fuzzy memory from 2.5 years ago, but or whatever it was. But that was one thing. Another thing is we originally had the first episode of the campaign was originally going to be like the decisive battle, or the indecisive battle as the story was, the end of the Great War. And so you were going to actually originally start the game like with this, the war, episode 2A, I think it is, the war one.
Mm-hmm.
That one was basically a modified version of what was the original episode 1.
Okay.
Which was you start halfway through, like mech losses in that one were permanent. So if you like lost a mech in combat, it was out of the game.
Yeah.
And you started with a bunch of mechs already on the board, and you started with like a boosted power and extra stuff. And it was meant to just be this quick, furious, destructive game. And the playtesters despised it. Jamie playtested it with Alan. Yeah, Jamie playtested it with Alan before we put it out there, and liked it. He's like, oh, it was fun. It was fast. It was crazy. It was just goofy.
Yeah.
And boy, the playtesters hated it. And then nobody wanted to lose their mechs. Like, I think they thought that it was like going to be permanent, not just in the game, but like in the campaign or something. I don't know. And we realized that was also not at all how the campaign was going to go. So it sort of set up a weird first experience with the campaign. You play this big epic fighty thing, and then just much more like normal Scythe after that. Right. And so we scrapped that because it was setting a weird expectation, and the testers didn't like it at all.
I could see that. I mean, I wanna play that version of Scythe now. You know, now that you know what it.
I'll see if I can find it in my notes. I'll email it to you.
that sounds cool. I think the permadeath, I guess, of the mechs.
Yeah. I thought it was fun.
Yeah. I can see that. But also, it does kind of set a different tone for what's to come. What were there any major changes? I mean, maybe aside from that one, any major changes that came about as a result of the playtester feedback?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head now. Other than that, like don't start the campaign in this weird, totally different way. Which is why you go the other way. Like the first game of the campaign is basically Scythe. Yeah. With a very small modification.
Right.
Other big things we learned from playtester feedback. I'm sure there were things. It's not jumping out at me right now.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
campaign nature made it hard because some people just couldn't finish, or they had people drop out and stuff. So
that makes because usually I think they ask you to play like 3 games, right? In a typical. Oh, that makes sense.
This was 8.
Yeah, a little more.
Yeah.
When is Revenge of the Annihilator coming out?
I am hesitant to answer this question because, in not joking, I actually did noodle around last summer with a little fan-made like epilogue mini campaign thing. It'd just be like 3 games or something. But it had like branching paths, right? So like the first game would be the same, but then you could go to these 2 games, and each of those would have different games, and then there'd be different ending, like 3 or 4 games long.
Yeah.
I have a lot of those notes laid out, just doing different things, using the Rise of Fenris stuff in a different way. I have some of those notes laid out. I just don't have time, man. I'm so tired and I'm so busy all the time. And my limited free time, I just want to go play games. I'm running out of motivation to make things right now. Hopefully my kids get a little older and like do things like start sleeping through the night. Maybe that'll change, but that definitely helps. I toyed with something on that though. I've still got the notes around. Maybe one day we'll see.
That would be awesome. How would you modify the expansion given feedback on its reception? I guess however this person decided the reception was.
Well, I mean, the reception was, I think the big thing I would change, we already kind of did, right? So subsequent printings changed. The Annihilator had a typo. Honestly, I'd go further on that one. I'd make it like, so the typo was in the first game, only it said to draw, it was a wrong version of the rules or whatever. I don't know. It said to draw 3 cards for the Annihilator and the dice, and that was just too easy. It's supposed to be 4. And I would have honestly, I think I'd go even higher, like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Like make it a thing that you must take multiple units in to win. because that episode just has ended. It's my favorite episode of the game to watch players play, because they open that box up and they're just like, they really get excited about it. And people have reported it online. Reviews mentioned it at the time. Loving that moment of opening the box.
Yeah.
Then it can end like right after that. And that's, sorry, what you were saying.
No, I was going to say that reveal in the game was it was an awesome reveal. I mean, you have this mech that is towering over all the other mechs in the game, and you do, especially if it was, like you said, 4 or 5 cards, especially the 5. Like, it feels like an insurmountable challenge. Like, how
that's the point. Yeah.
Do we stand any chance against this thing at all?
Right. I mean, it's tough to say. That's the biggest thing. There are other probably small things that could be tweaked, but the big thing would be that I think that I just want that battle to be more epic.
Mm-hmm. So. No, I could see that.
But I don't, I figure if the worst thing I would have done is add a couple of cards to a draw.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we did all right then.
Yeah, I would agree with that. How did you guys ensure that the stacked abilities acquired through the campaign, the different mods, didn't break anything?
That was weird, because we had kind of 2 goals with, like, the mods, for example. One goal was those came out of, so the Mech Mods came out of that original idea I told you about of possibly having like a custom faction map that you could add abilities to. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, we got to do something, because like in a campaign game, you start weak and you get better.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. And so what can we do? And so the Mech Mods came out of, well, you can customize your faction, so now you're more adaptable, right? Like, in this scenario, I feel like I'm going to need less combat. I want to have more mobility options or whatever.
Right.
And then the infrastructure mods came out of my need to make the game like more efficient. It's an efficiency game. So how do you make an efficiency game more efficient? And that's where I came up with the infrastructure mods to do that, and to make your actions go faster. But they needed to work both in a one-off game and in the campaign.
Yeah.
The balancing largely came down to just Jamie's knowledge of the game, and he was able to make adjustments and corrections. There were things that I was just like, I think this is too far, or I don't think this is far enough. I didn't say that to Jamie, but just like seeing adjustments he made. But then the feedback came back pretty positive. So then we just used the playtesting, basically. We didn't have any mathematical formula, just like, this seems right, playtest it. Does anyone report anything busted about it? And almost always his version was, even if I thought it was too powerful, and it was never too powerful. It was never too good. Some people, generally people like the infrastructure mods better than the mech mods, because they're a bonus rather than a replacement. But they're meant to be different. Like, they're not meant to be the same thing.
Right.
So they're meant to do different things.
Yeah. No, that's one of the things I really like about why am I gonna draw a blank? Tesla. Her mat, you have a couple of set in stone, and then 2 wide open, and what are you gonna draw? So I mean, I guess in that fashion, you did kind of get that blank mat. That you get, which
is interesting, because that was pretty much all Jamie. Like, that Tesla was already done, basically. We had to make some changes. We tweaked her, but like, her core design was already done. Fenris, we pretty much co-designed, but the Tesla core design was already pretty much there when we started. So it's interesting that you say that faction map that's customizable.
Yeah.
Sort of ended up in the game anyway. I never thought about that.
Yeah. So this person says the Rise of Fenris campaign was awesome, but the combinations that the modular elements present are more intriguing to me as a gamer. What are your favorite combination of modules to use with people familiar to the expansion? And what would you have no problem leaving out?
I really like the Triumph tracks. I really like Mad Tesla, especially in a solo game against the Atoma. I like to play 2 Atoma and Mad Tesla. Have him running around and causing a bunch of problems and messing with people. I think he's also great because he provides a way to fight that doesn't have like any hard feelings involved, right? Like, you just go fight this guy. And I kind of like his kind of like life bar, kind of video game-ish life bar feature.
Yeah.
That is something that actually was very loosely came out of my fan campaign thing. It's a modified version of it, but kind of. So I think Mad Tesla, the modular tiles, obviously the 2 new factions you throw in. What else? Oh gosh, I'm coming up blank on some of the things now. I think infrastructure tiles or mods are kind of fun just to throw a couple in there and get a faster start.
Yeah.
There's definitely a difference between the ones that give you free bottom row actions, and the ones that give you combat abilities. So maybe I might consider like creating 2 different stacks and say like pick 1 from here, 1 from here, or 2 from here, 2 from here.
That's a good way to go about it.
Yeah. I don't know about anything I'd just like not care about, you know. I like rivals. Alliances is a little bit more situational.
Yeah.
And so, but I have no problem throwing it in. Like if people like it, it's great. So.
Right. Okay, so this person asked, how did you resolve disagreements with Jamie on the design and the result? I remember a few forum posts where you guys were on opposite sides. It probably was related to that Annihilator, wasn't it?
Yeah, what was it? I can't remember that one. I remember that it happened. I don't remember what the topic was. But I also remember, and I actually am kind of happy to have a moment to clarify this, even though it's not public enough, but there you go. I remember now, like not now, I remembered, I found later, my words are failing me. Jamie was right on that. That's what I'm trying to say. I had misremembered something. I think what I was doing was remembering an earlier version of the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And because I can't remember what the details were on that disagreement, but I was convinced I was right. I was so convinced I was right. And I didn't say it to Jamie, but like even behind the scenes, like I was telling Josh, like, Josh, I really think I'm right about this, Josh Ward. And Josh was like, but you're not. Like, but aren't I though?
Right.
And then I later remembered or found an email, I can't remember what it was. It's like, oh, right.
Yes.
And I felt bad for having that disagreement.
Yeah. You know, that's got to be one of the hardest parts about being, you know, a game designer and you know, someone asking you rules questions is over the course of developing it. There's probably so many rules that were in and out and have changed and stuff. So that's impressive that anyone can then recall, okay, this was the final status.
Right. Jamie's good at that. He's really good at that. He very rarely makes those mistakes. And I do what I did there, right? Eventually, I push my point, but eventually I defer to Jamie, right? Because it's his game. It's not my game.
Yeah.
And so that's how. And we didn't have hardly any disputes in the game design. The biggest disputes we had were just on a couple of things that needed to be cut out. One thing in particular, which was his design, that needed to be cut out, and I wanted to put it in, and he was like, "It ain't gonna work." Not his words, mine.
Yeah.
And I said, "I think it can." And then eventually, I had to concede to him because he was right. So,
can you say what that was?
Yeah, it's in one of my design diaries. It's we originally wanted to have. This actually goes back to the first question you asked. I don't remember what the question was, but this is one of my answers. It's originally Fenris was going to have 2 mechs instead of 4.
Okay. Yeah, that was. And they were going to be. What did you do or the game during playtesting that didn't end up working in the end result? What are the things you really wanted to do but couldn't?
Yeah, it was the 2 mechs. Fenris is going to have these 2 massive. This is before we saw the art for the mechs that Jakob did with the tall mechs.
Right.
They were going to be like the size of a hex. Like you couldn't put another unit on the territory.
Oh wow!
And they were just these giant tank mechs, and Fenris is going to get 2 of them.
Yeah.
And they were just going to be stupid powerful.
Right.
But only 2.
Right.
And we ran it, but then like, how do you deal with the deploy things and the deploy stars and the deploy costs? And like, how do you deal with their abilities? Is it 1 super powerful ability? Is it like a double ability mech? Like what do you do? Is it too powerful? It just brought up a whole bunch of problems, and I couldn't find a more elegant solution than the one we came up with. Mm-hmm. But we were going to have a bunch of rules exceptions. And it's like, if it's a bunch of rules exceptions, it should be way better, not as good.
Yeah.
So,
I think that would have been cool, because I think so. The first time at least for me, the first time you encounter the Annihilator, and especially with the updated rules, it feels like an almost insurmountable challenge. Like it feels very intimidating. And then when you just encounter Fenris on the board, the mechs have some pretty cool, powerful abilities, but they feel less intimidating when there's 4 of them out on the board versus when there's just the 1.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know why it would feel that way, but yeah, it does feel that I don't know if it's the human player or if you feel like you're playing against the narrative the first time you encounter them.
Yeah, maybe. It's also like the ogre effect, right? Like that old board game Ogre, the
Yeah.
Steve Jackson game, where you got like the one massive thing.
Yeah.
Somehow, the more there are, they become a little easy. Maybe you adjust to them psychologically.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So the last spoiler question we have before we can go ahead and talk those design diaries. What was your favorite part of the Rise of Fenris?
My favorite part, like in designing it or the actual final product, do you think?
Let's say the final product.
I think it's what I said, that episode 5 reveal of the mech, the Annihilator mech.
Mm-hmm.
I really like being present for that.
Yeah. I can see that.
And
anytime they're opening the
faction
boxes,
reveals,
it's exciting. Yeah.
The faction reveals are fun. Yeah. The modular tiles, that's something that Jamie just sprung on me. Like, it missed the first couple of waves of playtesting. Like late in the process it was. But it was so good. Like, it just made so much sense, and it just worked immediately. We had to make almost no changes to it. I really like that as well.
Yeah, that was a nice addition, to be sure. I like anything that kind of throws away, the existing, where, well, if you're this faction, you have this mat, you do this. Like, I don't like that pre-programmed. Like, I like the idea of, all right, what is the situation that I find myself in, and then how do I solve this?
Shoot, I can't get a star from X now. Nuts.
Right, yeah.
What am I going to do? What am I going to do? That's all I ever do,
Right.
Kind of,
yeah, so I really did like the switching that up. So design diaries, we talked that you had a couple that never got released.
Yeah, I should probably actually finish those and release them. So episode 7 and episode 8. Yeah, 7 and 8. So I'll just very briefly go over what I intended to talk about in them. Yeah. So episode 7 was a really tricky one. The fun fact about episode 7 was it went undesigned for most of the design process. Like, I just had a filler. I was like, this episode needs to be here for something. I didn't know what it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And then episode 8, we eventually split into 2 episodes anyway. But getting that episode 7 bridge was really hard. I think the first draft or 2 of the full campaign didn't have an episode 7. Mm-hmm. And I just knew it had to be there. And the problem I faced was, you're doing the rescue Tesla thing, or find Tesla thing. Like, how do we find him? Mm-hmm. What's the process? What activity are you doing on the board? Mm-hmm. And I can't remember who came up with it, but I think it was Jamie who came up with the idea of having people visit the encounter spaces, but I'm not 100% sure now. But that really opened it up a lot to be able to be like, okay, here's a specific goal. So we once we got that figured out, that really helped quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And then just a side thing that I had thought about, like, there's a 12th encounter token that you put on the factory for that one. Like, that's one of the places you investigate. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that, I think it works nicely gameplay wise, but also I was the person who suggested the campfire tokens as alternate encounter tokens to Top Shelf Gamer.
Okay.
And I had contacted them and I just said, hey, could you put in like packs of 11 or 12? Because they were selling them in packs of 10.
Yeah.
And I said 11 or 12 because you need 11 to play Scythe, but it sort of arbitrarily came with 12. And I don't know, I just said that off the top of my head, right?
Yeah.
So they packaged them in sets of 12. So I'm sitting there going, we have this extra encounter token.
Yeah.
Let's use it. Let's put it in. And it made sense to have it the factory. It just made sense, because you may as well check the factory if you're looking for Tesla.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a funny little addition there as well.
Yes.
Kind of neat. But that episode was super hard for me to design and to come up with it was just a huge mental block. It was the hardest one of the entire thing to do that one. But then number 8, we have the 2 outcomes. You either get Mad Tesla or you get the tracks, the modular triumph track, depending on if someone finds it. So once we had that hunt, we realized, we should do like do you find them or do you not? So people have asked, like, what about having different outcomes if Vesna finds him or if Fenris finds him?
Mhm.
And we thought about that, but that creates a whole host of other, like, you have to have extra pages of text, you have to have special rules, special circumstances.
Yeah.
And just in general, writing the story was difficult because I couldn't ever address who accomplished a thing, right? Because you don't know which faction's going to accomplish it.
Right.
And that made drafting the story a little bit challenging in general, but then those gameplay things too were a little tough to do. But yeah, episode 8, I think the biggest thing about episode 8 is that people wonder about the doubling of the coin value at the end. And that is actually, I think it's good for creating an epic feel. I think it works well. And it also sort of acts to slightly temper the impact of those 25 coin bonuses.
Right.
Because they're essentially 12.5 coin bonuses. And I think there's something to that. Feels big, but doesn't feel as game breaking maybe.
Right.
But originally we were going to tie your final wealth into the game. Not necessarily into the score. But just into the outcomes of the game, like those little like economic and
yeah.
Originally, we were going to tie your wealth into that, and then we decided not to, and that's just sort of kind of remained. The score doubling remained as a factor, and I think it works really well for the game to double the scores and have this sort of big epic final thing. But it's it does sometimes confuse a few people. They're like, why are we doubling the scores?
Right.
It's like, it was a little bit of vestige of another iteration of a game.
Yeah, it also felt to me like, if you feel like you're behind, like this is your incentive
right, the double
to
or nothing,
really
right.
go hard. Yeah,
right.
Do what it takes to catch up and get yourself closer.
And I do think it does. Like if you're down on those 25-point bonuses, but you just crush the final episode.
Yeah.
And you're beating people after a doubled score. You're beating people by 40, 80, 100 points or whatever.
Yeah.
That could be a difference maker. We kind of wanted that big feeling and that sense that anyone could win. And I've heard reports a couple of times of people who said, like, I won one game the entire campaign and it was the last one. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want people to get to game 6, 7, 8 and just be like, I am mathematically eliminated from winning this.
Right.
Or,
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting way to go about doing it, where it was just like, all right, the last game is the one that counts.
Yeah.
That's
that's how it is in war too, right? Like,
yeah. Well, that's
the
true.
one that counts is the one that ends it.
Yeah.
Everything up to that point was prelude, and the one that ends it is the one that counts. And so
thematically that works too. Well, yeah, I liked how at the end of the campaign, like all that other stuff came into play for trying to getting your final episode storyline, like the A level, B level, C level kind of thing, where you can kind of tell your story based on your results. That was a really nice touch to make.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was kind of a last minute thing as well that I say last minute, but toward the end of the design process, I had that in mind, but I hadn't shared it with Jamie yet, and then I finally pieced that together and shared it with him late, and he liked it. I would have maybe liked for that to be slightly more thematic, but it was so hard to write it as it was. This little grid of outcomes to kind of sort of make sense. And to make them more thematic, it was a pretty challenging task at that point. But I thought it'd be like, you need something. You can't have a clear story because depends on who won, right?
Right.
If Polania won, go here. If Nordic won, go here. Like it's.
Yeah. One of the Facebook live chats that Jamie did recently, someone had brought up. I want to say it's Foreteller. Is that the system where they're having voice actors record like that Isofarian Guard, and it's being incorporated into other games where it's basically an app, but it's like you mentioned with you have a voice actor that's actually reading the content of the game or the story, and at least with the Isofarian Guard, the way they are doing it is those decision points, and depending on whether you do A or B, you get a different story, and someone had asked Jamie whether or not they would include, have Rise of Fenris tied into that, so you could actually have the story read to you thematically. And he didn't seem particularly interested, but I thought it would have been a really good fit. That I still think I would like to see that done, because like you said, it'd be really cool to have that especially that first, before you sit down, that prologue, that story presented in an epic way. And I know I've seen some of the fan videos on YouTube where they have gone and done that. It's a cool option to have.
I'm not familiar with that. I don't know. Sounds neat.
Yeah. No, I think it'd be a good opportunity for Fenris, being, because it is aimed towards more story driven.
The narrative.
Yeah. Cool. We have reached the end of our questions.
Sorry, you're going to have content for a couple weeks now, I think.
Hey, I might, break it into 2-3 episodes, or just have a couple of Mondo long ones. And
sorry, I talk too much.
No, this is all super fascinating to me. Like, my wife's the same way, in terms of like, the behind the scenes stuff is just as interesting as the what comes of it, especially within games. Every playtest that I've done for Stonemaier, I've held on to like the print and play stuff, because it's just in the box with the original, because I like seeing, all right, here's where it came from. In my little Scythe, I have the big, it printed 5 or 6 pieces of paper and colored it in with colored pencil, because I didn't have a color printer at the time. But it just lives in the box, and it's cool to see like how it began, and
that's cool,
the story. So I've always enjoyed Jamie doing the design diaries, and I loved reading your design diaries for Rise of Fenris, because it was such a different beast, from Scythe itself. So we could talk another 40 minutes. I love hearing the stories of what came into it and what didn't make it and why. And it's endlessly fascinating.
I hope it was okay.
Yes. And I appreciate you coming on and sharing it.
Yeah, thanks.
Too, for sure.
It was fun. It was great.
I hope I didn't take up too much of your time. I know
it's fine.
The time when the kids are quiet is time you could be
precious.
Doing something else. All right, Ryan. Thanks a ton for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Dusty. It was great.
Do you want to plug anything or say anything before we go?
I don't have any plugs, I'm afraid. I wish I did.
Well, that actually does bring me to one of the questions I didn't ask. I thought it'd be first. Can we? So I know you'd mentioned this too. Can we expect more games from Ryan soon?
I would love to say yes to that. There are 2 in particular that I'm very passionate about, but I have, as I mentioned, found the original design process combined with being a high school English teacher and having 2 young children. It's demanding. So maybe someday, but not for the foreseeable future, it looks like.
Right. Well, you've spent so much time in the last couple months over Zoom. I appreciate you hopping back on with me here.
No problem. It was fun.
Take care of yourself, Ryan.
Hey, you too. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.